So we've all heard the headlines about the US-China trade war, right? The tariffs, the politics. But what does that actually mean for the people on the ground, on the factory floor? Today, we're going to peel back the layers and see how this huge economic fight is forcing Chinese manufacturers into a really high-risk game of survival. And it all kind of boils down to one very blunt quote. This comes from a manufacturer who's right in the thick of it. And man, it just perfectly captures the tension we're digging into. You see, this isn't just about spreadsheets and economics. It's about jobs, it's about culture, and it's about a global supply chain that took decades to build. It's a really stark take that sets the stage for the massive disruption that followed. All right, so how did this whole storm get started? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was more like an endless back and forth, a tit-for-tat of tariffs. And this created an environment of pure chaos where if you're a business on the ground, the rules of the game could literally change overnight. And to really get the stakes here, you have to appreciate the sheer scale of it all. After about 25 years of just constant growth, the trade between the US and China was worth a staggering $600 billion just last year. This wasn't some small corner of the global economy, it was one of its most powerful engines. And here is the core of the political friction, broken down nice and simple. The US was importing almost $439 billion worth of stuff from China, but only sending about $143 billion back. That huge gap, a trade deficit of nearly $300 billion, well, that became the central reason for the conflict that was about to explode.
The response to that imbalance was this volley of escalating tariffs from both sides. All of a sudden, importing something from China could mean paying an extra 145% in taxes. I mean, if your entire business is built on predictable costs, that is just pure chaos.
But, these big abstract numbers have very real, very human consequences. So let's go to the factory floor and actually hear from the people who are caught right in the middle of this thing. So meet Jacob Rothman. He's an American in China, and he's the guy who's literally making the spatulas so people back home can flip their hamburgers. His company, which usually brings in over $150 million in revenue, saw business drop by 20%. And not because people stopped buying spatulas, but because of pure, paralyzing uncertainty. And his words here, they show that the problem isn't just about the extra cost, it's about confidence. These unpredictable tariffs completely shattered the basic rhythm of doing business. Retailers, they plan their orders a year in advance. So if they have no idea if a giant tariff is about to hit, they just stop. They pause. And for a factory, that pause can be absolutely devastating. And it wasn't just the big companies feeling the squeeze. For smaller, family-run businesses, the dream of reaching the American market was also put on hold. Take Jonathan Wang. He runs a business that's been hand-making incense for over a decade, and he saw this huge opportunity to start exporting his unique products to the US. But just as he was getting going, the tariff storm hit. And the effect was immediate. I mean, think about that. For a small business, shutting down production for months while you're still paying your workers, that is a massive, massive blow. He had to slam the brakes on his dream of breaking into that US market. So when you're facing this kind of crazy uncertainty, what do? You can't just sit around and hope for the best. Manufacturers in China quickly realized they needed an escape plan. They needed a whole new strategy just to survive. For the smaller exporters like Jonathan, one potential escape route was this quirky little rule called de minimis. It's a Latin term that basically means too small to matter. It let him ship small, low-value packages directly to customers in the US without paying any tariffs. But when that loophole got closed, it was just another dead end. It made it basically impossible to turn a profit. Now, for the bigger players like Jacob Rothman, the main escape plan got its own name, China Plus One. The idea is actually pretty simple. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You keep your main factory in China, but you open a second one, the Plus One, in a country like Cambodia or India or Vietnam, specifically to serve the US market and get around those tariffs. And this isn't just some idea on a whiteboard. It's a strategy playing out in real time. It all starts with the insane risk from the tariffs. So then companies go out and test new locations, like a factory in Cambodia, to see if they can even make it work. Once they prove they can, they start shifting all their US-bound production to that new +1 factory. It's a super deliberate, incredibly expensive, and really complex move.
But all these escape plans run into one giant, immovable wall. You can move a factory, sure, but you can't move your customers. The European market is already saturated, and other markets are just too small to absorb all that production. The reality is, in the short term, there is just no replacement for the American consumer. Okay, so let's zoom back out for a second. All of these individual stories and these big corporate strategies are creating these strange, unpredictable ripples across China's entire economy. And it's leading to a really confusing, kind of paradoxical situation.
So check this out, because this is a real head-scratcher. In the second quarter, China's exports to the U.S. totally plummeted by 24%, a massive hit. But at the exact same time, their overall exports to the whole world actually went up by 6%. It seems like, for now, trade with the rest of the world is kind of cushioning the blow from the American market. But that cushion might not be as comfy as it looks. Even though they posted a better-than-expected GDP growth of 5.2%, the economy is facing some serious headwinds. They've got this persistent deflation, which means companies are earning less, so they don't want to invest or hire new people. And on top of that, consumer confidence is at an all-time low. The pressure is really building just beneath the surface. And all of this, it's leading to a really profound long-term shift. For businesses and for governments on both sides, the game isn't about trying to fix the old relationship anymore. It's about adjusting to a completely new and much more distant reality. And this quote from an observer in Beijing, it just says it all. The conversations happening behind closed doors aren't about how do we rebuild things with the US. No, they're about how do we manage the decoupling. How do we untangle these two massive economies in the least painful way possible? What this really means is there's probably no going back to the way things were. Businesses like Jacobs and Jonathan's, they aren't planning for a temporary hiccup anymore. They're retooling their entire operations for a future of permanent friction. They're building whole new supply chains for a world where the two biggest economies are just learning to operate apart from each other. And that leaves us with one final massive question. For decades, that US-China trade relationship basically defined the global economy. As they pull apart, as they decouple, a whole new map of global trade and manufacturing is going to have to be drawn. The big question is, who's going to be holding the pen?